G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. What you're looking at is a piece of stringybark. I'm going to cast a guess and say it's probably 100 years old stringybark. Chainsaw cut. And this bit weighs 83.1 grams. Okay, that's because I shaved a little bit off it in order to get exactly 100 grams, and this kind of gives you a bit of an idea of the size of the thing. But anyway, I wanted 100 grams to stick into my gasification canister on the Mk-2-B SunGasifier. And I did that, and this is the Lycor which I drove out of it during today's operations. So let's see what's left in the can. And here's the sneak preview. We have 2.75 litres of SunGas in the gasometer at 18 minutes to 7 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. So there was a time when that was showing 3.1 litres, but Boyle's Law, temperature drops, volume drops, because the pressure has dropped. So therefore, we have cooler gas. But anyway, we will cut this thing off. And see what we've got. So first we measure the liquid which is out gas. We'll call that the Lycor. Isn't that a great word? L-I-C-H-O-R. Lycor. Okay, so here we go. And we don't quite have 40 mils. There we go, the last couple of little droppy lets. So what we have is, let's call that 33 mils. Maybe 35. Call it 33. Okay, so now we see what's inside the canister. And I must admit, it's pretty bloody hard to get the top off. This is kind of one of the failure points which makes this an experimental rig that isn't good for multiple use. Right, what have we got there? Well, that's kind of what it looks like on the inside. So we turn the scales on and we discover what's left. And notice it gets hot enough on the outside that it's burnt the zinc plating off the washer underneath the copper bolt. Okay, so we shake all that out, and I gotta say, it looks like it's pretty charcoalized. 56.5 grams of mass left in the charcoal. Whoopsie, 56.4. I better correct that. As well as now it's settled down, let's call that 34, 35 mils of Lycor. 35 mils of Lycor. 56.4 plus 35 gives us 91.4. So that was 8.6 grams outgassed from the 100 grams of wood. And we only really had kind of 2 hours and 3 minutes where the temperature was high enough for the pyrolytic reaction to have occurred. And meanwhile, the first 500 mil was vented, and about 300 mils of the next 500 mil was vented. So we had 800 mils, or 0.8 of a litre, of unburnable gas, plus 0.2 of a litre, plus 0.5 of a litre burned. So yeah, we've got 3.7 litres out of 100 grams in 2 hours. And here's the really curious bit, as I'm sure you will have noticed. I could have fitted more Stringybark into the tin. I could have fitted 250 to 280 grams into the tin. So the 3.7 litres could well have been 10 litres if we'd filled the tin with Stringybark. And as it happens, Stringybark, well, that's what my forest floor is covered with. I don't actually have any Radiata Pine here. I would have to drive to town to collect free Radiata Pine, and yeah, although Radiata Pine produces twice as much SunGas per gram as Stringybark does, the Stringybark is 2.5 times denser than the Radiata Pine, so therefore I can get more SunGas by cooking Stringybark in a given volume than I can ever get by cooking the free Radiata Pine. And just at the moment, I'm in a situation where not only would I like to have a source of supply of free gas to burn in my kitchen stove, but anything that can get rid of the bushfire fuel hazard from the forest floor and turn that into sequestered charcoal to be returned to the soil without my having to burn anything, and which will allow me to burn the methane and the hydrogen without putting most of the charcoal or the carbon from the wood, which the trees have spent decades removing from the air, without me having to put that carbon back into the sky. Because let's just face it, if you burn methane with hydrogen, CH5 plus H plus O2 in the air, that yields 1 molecule of carbon dioxide for every 3 molecules of water vapour. So this is actually a vastly more eco-friendly use of firewood than it is to just set a light to it and use it for cooking, because this kind of separates all of the different things out of the wood, and it lets you use the Lycor to white ant proof fence posts. It lets you put the charcoal back into the soil, and instead of letting the methane, which would otherwise be released to the atmosphere by the wood composting on the forest floor, all that methane and hydrogen, it can all be safely burned. There we go, I was running it a bit too hard. There you go, it's burning, it's burning, it's burning, it's burning. Yeah, it's a happening thing. Synthetic gas from sun-cooked Stringybark. There you go, and it's still burning. Yep. And of course, anytime you get any sort of an obstacle on the bottom of the gasometer, it sort of prevents the gasometer from sinking enough, it prevents the water from rising high enough, so you might not get to burn the last 100 mils of gas. But this is a pilot model. It's something to show that the whole thing is workable. And at the moment, the current theory is the Mk-3 will probably have a 1 litre can, because I can't buy a 1.5 litre can. And that'll go with a 1.2 square metre parabolic dish as an upgrade from a 0.39 square metre dish. So 3 times the amount of reflected sunlight on twice the volume of gasification canister, with twice the volume and twice the mass of wood inside the canister. What I'm hoping to do is to turn 100% of the charge into charcoal and synthetic gas and liquor, all in about the first hour to hour and a half. So that if you've got a sunny morning and you load up the whole system and the day turns shitty, that won't really matter, because the mirror will be pumping so much heat into the canister via these conduction radiation thermal transfer bolts that one won't actually have to rely on 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours of absolutely perfectly clear sky, because in the middle of the day you just about can't do that. So the next test for the Mk-2-B, for whatever it's worth, will probably be 100 grams of sawdust, just to see what happens. And after that, well, I think I'll probably move on to the Mk-3 and go for the 1.2 square metre dish and see what I can do with that. Warbles on right to YouTube. Ciao.